Okay. Regarding any work that's still to come in, so I don't accept any work after the final exam. Up until the final exam, you could consider turning in the second research essay. It's due tonight, but I'll accept it all the way up until the exam. And also, I emailed everybody about a discussion which is still open too. So the discussion, this one, online content genres, supposedly finished December 6th, but this is also available. So remember, this is not extra credit. This is actually in the syllabus. So if you don't do this, you lose 25 points. And frankly, it's a fun and interesting discussion. We've already had plenty of people offer opinions that you could read and feed back on and stuff. So I highly recommend you do it. So those are the two things that you could still turn in. And I'm accepting that right up until the final exam, but not after that. So once we do the exam, everything shuts down and our course is done. So hopefully people are prepared for that and in a good position to just have a great holiday. And thank you very much for doing the whole course. Good morning, William. William's in there in chat. Anybody else? Please just say hi in chat so we know you're there. So, the final exam. This is a page which you can find in the modules, of course. It's right there, final exam review. So, looking at this, it's got all the information there. It also has cahoots to the different chapters that we've studied, and further down a list of topics about the questions. So, the cahoots give you a very good idea of most, if not all, of the questions on the exam. So playing the cahoots, you're going to cover more than 50 questions. So the exam will be a subset of what you see there, and then the actual topics are here too, if you want to go into the PowerPoints and look up answers and get yourself a little bit more familiar with the topics themselves. So there we are. So today what I wanted to do is just say generally what is the exam, and then go through the cahoots with you. And if you want, we can take a look at any of these topics down here and talk about that. So first off, there's 50 multiple choice questions on the exam. Some of them might be true, false. Most of them are multiple choice with 4 answers. The format is exactly like the midterm was. Questions come from chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13 from the textbook. So those are the chapters we studied since the midterm. Notice that chapter 12 isn't there. So chapter 12 is about the movie industry, and we left that out. So we did not study chapter 12. We also did a quiz in week 11. And again, the cahoots are a great way of catching up with all the questions that I felt were worth asking about the chapters. So I would definitely do these cahoots. So they're already open. They close on the day of the exam at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then the exam starts at 8. So, use them before then. They won't be open just before the exam. So, organize yourselves appropriately. Here's the instructions regarding how to do, what's called a Kahoot challenge. Is basically, that's where to enter into the challenge, and also you can find out more about the app that you need in order to play it. So there's that. All right, so once you have the app on your device, you should be able to play the challenge. I guess they do that in order to get you to put the app onto your phone. But it's really useful and very good way of getting this. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into the Kahoots. So the first thing we're going to look at is Chapter 7. And let us play Chapter 7. We'll play Classic. And our, we'll soon be getting a pin, 938-844. Whoops. 938-844. Okay. And let's just check ourselves also on, so it's 938-844. Let me write these down here. 938-844. Cool. And in terms of topics, let's take a look. On Chapter 7 was about advertising. So some of the things we took a look at, the types of advertising agency. Creative agency would just have the conception and creation of advertisements, versus the full service agency has conception, creation, distribution, and also ad buying, so buying the time on different media. So that would be called a full service ad agency. Forms of advertising, if we look back into the history of electronic media, the early forms of advertising on radio were like 10-minute long pitches for things like real estate. So they called that toll broadcasting, where they would charge you for the amount of time that you spoke on the air. They were kind of like infomercials are now, which is like a large section of time devoted to a single topic. Later in the history of electronic media, they moved into sponsorship. So ad agencies would actually work for large corporations like General Electric, and they would create shows. I Love Lucy was created for Lucky Strike cigarettes and was produced by an ad agency until Lucy took it over. And finally, eventually we moved into what we have now, which is forms of advertising based on short commercial spots. So they call those clusters of spots that appear on the air in groupings of 60-second or 30-second commercials spaced into the regular programming. So those are spots. And a bunch of spots together is called a cluster of spots. We looked also at, compared some of the advantages of different media regarding what they offer to advertisers. So if you look at radio, for instance, because it's a very local medium and it's relatively inexpensive, and it's pretty easy to produce a radio advertisement. Local radio offers, the ability to reach small local audiences, to be very flexible because you can change, advertising strategies quickly, and it's also relatively inexpensive. Versus the advantages of internet advertising are, that you get a global audience. It's not bound by your particular locality. It is also relatively inexpensive, and it's also provides the opportunity to target your ads very precisely to people who, for instance, were looking for certain products. You can target those. On the internet, we also looked at different types of ads. A long vertical ad that appears over here would be called a skyscraper ad. An ad that appears at the top of your screen would be called a banner ad. Then comparing the cost of advertising media, well, television and particularly big events like the Super Bowl are by far the most expensive type of advertising in electronic media. And the cheapest, least expensive would be the internet. So there you go. So let's see about playing that Kahoot, Chapter 7. And let me just see in Maybe I can jump in there so Chow's not all by herself playing this group. One sec. Oh, gotta give myself a nickname. Let's see. There we go. Okay, go. And we're in. Oh, thank you. Tristan's in too. I think you guys, well, here we go. Let's just start it. And for those streaming, it's not really worth playing when you're streaming because the delay is so long, unfortunately. Question 1, behavioral targeting tracks users' online activity to deliver customized ads. So this is what we were talking about regarding internet, where it can check out what you've been doing. So that was true. And as we said, one of the advantages of the internet advertising is that it can be customized and it can be very specifically about you and what your interests are. All right, television commercials are aired in groups called clusters or pods. So we're talking about the 60-second spot when there's a group of spots. What would that be called? Yeah, everybody got that right. So a group of spots could be called a cluster or a pod. That's right. A program containing ads for a variety of products and brands is supported by. So what this is, we're referring to a show that you might watch on television, which is not just sponsored by GE or something like that, but which actually has commercials for a bunch of different products. So what would we call that? Particularly, it's not donations. Okay, well, we got it. Spot advertising. So again, if you've got a television show with like a dozen ads for different brands and such, each one lasting 60 seconds, that's spot advertising. If we were looking at NPR, public radio or television, donations is the way that they stay up on the air, and sponsorship. I don't know, I listen to a lot of podcasts which have a single sponsor, so that would be that type of thing. More cable channels can lead to, what happens when you've got now hundreds of channels instead of just 3 or 4 big networks? Higher ratings, increased revenue, audience fragmentation, audience fatigue. All right, we got 3, everybody got that one? Audience gets fragmented. So in the 1980s, when everyone's watching 3 or 4 channels, you get 30 million people watching a night. In the 2020s, you're lucky if you get 3 million people watching a given channel in a night. That's fragmented audience. Product placement. Another way of advertising that we didn't specify yet. So product placement, advertisements for food are placed at meal times. Careful framing of the shot so the product is in the center. An audio cue highlights each appearance of the product. Companies pay to have their product featured. Which is the best answer? Well, the best answer is number 1, so don't let the blue one?
That was an accident.
Oh, okay.
Keep my screen open.
Oh, darn, okay. Well, it doesn't matter the score you get at the end of all this, but we'll definitely give you that one if we could. So companies pay to have their product featured. Yeah, definitely. So the other distractor, careful framing of the shot so the product is in the center, is, that's a little more too specific. Okay, so let's move on here. Radio advertising was born in 1922. WEAF aired 10-minute talk paid by a real estate firm. So that's kind of an infomercial for real estate. 1919, blah, blah, blah. So there's a bunch of others. Boom. So which one do you think it would be? And okay, so the correct answer, 1922, WEAF with a real estate firm. What was the alternative? 1926, General Mills produced a jingle for Wheaties. That sounds convincing, but it was actually real estate. They just talked up a development. Hey, come to Long Island, we've got this. That's what they did for 10 minutes. Advantages of some kind of advertising include local, flexible, low cost, and a pretty large audience. So would that describe the internet if we're talking about local or mobile or TV or radio? that describe best? And radio is the right answer. Okay, so radio gives us local because it's broadcast over the air. It's only to the designated market area like San Francisco. It's flexible, it's easy to redo radio ads, low advertising costs, so that should also be a hint. Television is the most expensive, radio is a lot cheaper, so that's how we could have figured that one out. Question 8 of 10, a form of online advertisement running down a vertical column on the browser window. So what do you call an ad that runs down that way? Is it a skyscraper, an interstitial, an extramercial, or a banner ad? And we had 2 good answers, so that's a skyscraper. Remember, a banner runs across the top versus a vertical ad stands up tall like a skyscraper. All right, next up, an advertising agency that can plan, research, create, produce, and place ads in all media, in other words, they can buy the time for the ads, is called a full-service agency, a creative boutique, a digital agency, or a media buying service. Morning, Josias.
No.
There's our famous sign playing cahoots to review for the final. Yes, everybody got that. So that's a full service agency that can do all of those things at once. And next up, last question about advertising. The FCC requires programmers to disclose placement sponsors in the show's credits. So it means that if Apple gets their iPads into Modern Family in the credits, Apple has to say, well, Modern Family has to say, yes, we were sponsored by Apple to show their iPads. Everybody got that right. Awesome. That's great. Okay, so any questions about that? All right, so as you can see, the list of topics down here are not totally complete. So, you know, you may just want to keep track of any little extras that show up there. They're almost complete, but not quite. Chapter 8 was regarding ratings and share, audience measurement, so how we understand the audience. We looked at the history of different methods of measuring audiences, going back to the early days of radio with the odometer, which was a mechanical device that went into your radio and tracked what you were listening to, up until the PPM, the portable people meter, which is the tiny little device which is used to listen to high frequency signals that are in radio and television shows. We can't even hear them with our ears, but the device picks up the code and knows that we were exposed to that show. So that is the current, best bet. Let me actually open up the Kahoot now, just because while we're getting logged in, we can also, whoops, that was 10, I think, wrong one. Hang on a sec. There's 8, there it is. Chapter 8, play. And let's get, what is the number? Pin is 43850. Okay, so that's the pin. What's happening with mine? Mine is going crazy. Okay, thank you for logging in. Let's figure out what's wrong. I want to play too. Hoping I can reload it. Oh. There we go. 43850. Okay. So it's 43850. Let's just look a little more at what's up here. Ratings, how to calculate rating and share. Okay, so the math will not be difficult on this, but as we remember, audience measurement in broadcast and electronic media typically only really counts the number of people who are watching. We don't really understand too much about why they watch from this type of research, but we understand how many people are watching. And so all of this it happens with reference to an audience universe. So the universe is how many people could actually be watching a show at any given time. So here in the Bay Area, our universe comes close to about 1 million people who could watch the show at a given time. And then we're always interested in how many people actually tuned into the show. So let's say we're watching CSI on a given night, and 100,000 people in the Bay Area watch the show. And so that gives us, they call this impressions. And you can think of that as how many times was the ad impressed into somebody's mind based on this. So let's say 100,000 people actually saw the ad out of a universe of 1 million. And so this would be the households using television. They abbreviate that as HUT. And so that would give us a rating of 10%, because 100,000 is 1/10 of the total that are in the universe. That's a rating. There's a slightly different audience measurement, which is called share. And when we calculate share, we still have the same number of impressions, because the same number of people were watching CSI on that night. But instead of the universe of all households using television, which we use for rating, share concerns only the number of households that had their television on. So let's say only 200,000 people were, watching TV on that given night. All right. So the difference with rating, 1 million households could have been watching television, but many of them didn't have their TV on. In fact, only 200,000 of them had their TV on. So when we measure share, it is the same number of impressions, but now over just the households that had their TV on, 100,000 over 200,000. So share would actually be 50% on that night. So share always has a higher number than rating, because rating is basically how many people watched out of everybody who could have watched, versus share is same number of people who watched, but now it is out of the people who had their TVs on at that time. So share is always giving you a higher number. So that's how to calculate ratings and share. As I said, the math is likely to be as easy as this. Nielsen sweeps periods. Well, Nielsen does the ratings 4 times a year. They do something called the sweeps, which is on a nationwide basis. In every market, they measure primetime viewing. So that happens 4 times a year. They call those the sweeps periods, where they monitor the whole country. CPM is a measurement of how much it costs to reach 1,000 people. And this is used to compare media buys in television versus radio versus the internet. You may find that in television it costs you, $100 to reach 1,000 people, versus on the internet it might cost you only $1 to reach 1,000 people. That's why we say TV is the most expensive medium. So the CPM means cost per, and then mil is 1,000. So it's the cost to reach 1,000. So if in TV it costs you $100 to get each 1,000 audience members, then the CPM is $100. If on the internet it only costs you $1 to reach 1,000 people, the CPM is $1. Okay? So CPM is like, how much does it cost to reach 1,000 people? And then finally, advertising, barter and cooperative advertising. So barter, remember, is where you trade stuff and no cash changes hands. So it might be a radio station, for instance, trades airtime for some other thing that they need, office furniture. So give us some new office furniture and we'll give you the equivalent value in airtime. So that's barter. Cooperative is when a national brand like Toyota or something like that goes in and cooperates with its local distributors, like a Saramonte Toyota or something like that, and they split the advertising cost. So Toyota nationally would give half the money and the local dealer would give half the money. They cooperate together in order to pay for a campaign, which is, it's very interesting to a radio station, for instance, because they know that the spots are going to cost half what they would typically cost to a dealer. So they go after those dealers very aggressively. They say, hey, you can advertise with us and Toyota's going to pay for half of it. So why don't you do it? So they watch that carefully. All right, so let's play this Kahoot here. Gosh, I keep getting kind of half logged out here or something. I don't know why. Sorry, it takes a while. All right, in we go. So let's start. 15 questions here. Ooh. And first one. Nielsen's odometer was first used to measure which of the following? Primetime TV viewers in the 1960s, radio station listeners in the 30s, TV station viewers in the 40s, radio and TV audiences starting in the 1950s. So which one would that be? And so the right answer is radio listeners in the 1930s. Remember, the odometer was a little mechanical device that they stuck into radio receivers. DMA stands for Digital Marketing Association, Dominant Media Area, Designated Market Area, Dynamic Media Advertising. So what would that be? Correct answer is designated market area. So the country is divided up into hundreds of designated market areas, which Nielsen measures individually. In a 1 million television household area, COPS is seen in 150,000 homes. What is its rating? Rating is impressions over universe, right? So everybody got it right. Aren't you good at calculating ratings? I'm proud of you. So yes, that is correct. We won't go over why, because we just did. Radio station ratings often measure audiences in terms of what? Average quarter hour, diary household, minutes and seconds, or share. Waiting for one person to jump in there. And looks like we're gonna get, okay, well the correct answer is AQH, average quarter hour. The reason for this is people spin the radio dial a lot more than people change the channel on a television broadcast or switch out of an internet streaming session. So rather than, they basically have to track what were you listening to, so they do it every 15 minutes, the average quarter hour on radio, versus television is done on the half hour. If a spot advertisement costs $100 and reaches 1,000 people, what is its CPM? Is it $1, $10, $100, or $1,000? Remember, CPM is cost per mil, the cost of reaching 1,000 people. So here we go. Yes, everybody got it right. So it says in the question, it cost $100 and it reaches 1,000 people. That is the definition of its CPM. Next up, question 6. When Ford pays for half of a local car dealer's advertising, it is known as run of schedule, fixed cost, barter, or cooperative. Okay, so yeah, we're not doing too badly. That is cooperative advertising. Okay, when the local dealer splits the cost, they cooperate with the national brand, that's cooperative. Nielsen's PPM is a portable people meter, personal portable meter, point of use personal meter, personalized portable metric. God. Go. See how we're going to do. Correct answer, portable people meter. Very good. So it's a little device that hears those codes and allows Nielsen to know you were exposed to an ad. Diary responses can be inaccurate, but ratings based on metering devices fixed those problems. All right, so the correct answer is false. Let me just explain that. Historically, there were many methods, right? There was the telephone response method, which was an early way of doing ratings for radio. They would phone people up and they would say, hey, are you listening? What radio station are you listening to? Then they moved on and started distributing people diaries. They said, keep track for the next week of every radio station you listen to. That unfortunately led to problems with people not remembering what they listened to, filling in anything they could think of, etc. It wasn't very accurate. But when the PPM came in, the metering devices, supposedly, well, they fixed that problem because you didn't have to remember at all what you were listening to anymore. But unfortunately, it didn't fix all of the problems because there is still a problem of having a representative sample. We take a very small sample of a few hundred households and predict out of that what the millions of households that actually exist in the real world are watching. So it's very important that our very small sample of a few hundred households has the same demographic makeup as the wider population of millions of people. Even if we give little portable people meters to those hundreds of people, if those hundreds of people don't represent the population at large, we still have problems. We're going to have bad data. So we have to be very careful that we still have the correct balance of different demographic groups in the sample. So the meters don't make up for all of that. Ad exchanges are most common in which medium? Okay, well, we really didn't get to this. So your guess is welcome. The correct answer is the internet. So ad exchanges were created when small businesses went to the internet, things like blogs, things like small online radio channels. They needed an organization which would sell advertising for them because they didn't have time to produce all their content and sell ads. So ad exchanges were created, which would bring together hundreds of bloggers or small websites, small web businesses, and would sell ads for that aggregated total of hundreds of websites. When you put them all together, they may have several million people who actually read them, which is as good as putting an ad on television, because where you're reaching several million people. So ad exchanges, a way of bringing together a lot of small websites and stuff. All right, 4 times a year, Nielsen sends diaries to sample homes around the country. What is the name of that period? Or those four times. They're called something. They're called sweeps. Great job. That's exactly right. Question 11. Ratings explain why viewers and listeners prefer certain programs over others. Do we know why somebody watches when we count up how often they watch? That is true, correct. It is false. We do not know from ratings why people are watching. We only know how many people are watching. Barring an unlikely event, shares are always larger than ratings. Okay. So that is true. Excellent. Everybody got it. Shares make you look better than ratings do. Which of these is an actual audience measurement challenge faced by online advertisers? Now we're talking about online advertisers. There are different ways of counting website visitors online. There are different means of sample selection. There are different uses of different metering techniques. And possibly all of these are problems faced by online advertisers. Okay, there we go. Everybody got it right. That's true. So unlike radio and television, where Nielsen has everything pretty much settled, in online advertising, there are different competing services that rate the rate the audience for online. So they have all of those problems. You know, each of the services uses a different way of selecting their sample. They have different ways of counting websites, and they use different metering techniques. Some will put, you know, a little code into people's laptops, yet others will focus on their mobile. So it's a challenge. Which of the following is used to set online advertising rates? Oh, okay, this is useful. So we talked about different ways that advertisers make money here. So what would it be? Click-through rates, caching. I'm not even going to read them. There's so many words there. But try to pick the one that represents the different ways that advertising money happens on the internet. And the answer is through hits, cost per click, or CPT, which stands for cost per transaction. So, sorry we didn't review that in advance, but what this means is that advertisers, for instance with those skyscraper ads, get paid for every time someone hits their page, because that is an impression. You will see the skyscraper ad. If you choose to click on that ad because it's interesting to you and you want to know more about it, that's called cost per click. So they get paid more that way. And then finally, cost per transaction is another formula used in internet advertising, where the you only will get paid if somebody actually buys something based on what is put up on your ad, site. So CPT, that's the other way they can make money. So all three of those are valid. Audience activity is more important than audience size in mobile or social media ad campaigns. Okay. So what do you think about that? So just wait up. Everybody got that right. Terrific. Absolutely. In social media and in mobile engagement rules. Okay, so excellent. And whoops, I don't want to leave. I want to go back, and we're going to jump right into social media site. Chapter 9. This one, I think you'll find, there are a lot of questions regarding the characterization or the summary of different services. So these questions, I think, are relatively easy to pick out. So Friendster was the predecessor to Facebook. It was the original kind of social medium. Facebook, which started out as a service that was targeted at college students, but eventually opened up to older folks and then to the world at large, to the moment they got hundreds of billions of users. Instagram, which was a more visually based site that provided for visual narratives. Twitter, which they call a microblog because you can only post a given number of characters, 140, now 280. Snapchat, Can't remember what that's all about, but you guys know it. And then Google Plus, which is summarized as a social layer that's placed over all of Google's services. So you think you're only getting Gmail and YouTube, but then you realize you've got this ridiculous thing. You've got a profile in something called Google Plus that nobody ever looks at. But it was an attempt by Google to kind of create a social service and automatically sign you up for it, and hopefully to compete with Facebook, but it never really took off. However, it's still there. If you use any of the Google services, you are in this social layer called Google Plus that sits on top of YouTube and Gmail and everything else. So that's a quick summary of those services. In terms of social media, some of the interesting audience activity we see is cyber journalism. This is where users get out and actually report on breaking news. Facebook contributes to something called Ambient Awareness, which is sort of always half knowing what your friends are doing without really being involved with them. So they call that Ambient Awareness. You're aware of them, kind of like, but without really being, too dedicated to finding out more about them. And it says here, social effects of social networks. The concerns that have come out of social networks, the concern with privacy, controversy over fake news, and so, the poor quality of public information that is coming out of news delivered through social media. So cyber journalism is great. It's encouraging. It can turn us all into sort of news reporters, but there's also that downside where unrestricted access can fool us. So it says public information, but we're talking about public information. So, and let me see. So that is chapter 9. So let's find the Kahoot for chapter 9. Where is it in my list here? Further up. There it is. Let's play 12 questions. And hit classic. And game pin 120989. Okay. Put that in here. Okay, let us begin. Thank you to all players. Which service is considered to have broken the ground for the social networking sites of today? What was the original? Friendster, Pukipa, LiveJournal, Blogger.com. Pukipa, that would have been a good one. Yes, everyone got Friendster. Excellent. Next up. Blogs can be considered watchdogs of both the government and the media. Let's hope so. Yep, everybody got that one too. So when they're at their best, blogs have actually broken stories that brought down government officials. Which of the following describes Facebook? A liberal news site, a social network designed to connect college students, a counter-textual interface. What on earth is that? A social layer across all of Google's services. Everybody got that. Facebook, a social network designed to connect college students. Question 4, which of the following best describes Instagram? A place to store visuals, a microblog, a video game playing community, a social network. Instagram. Here we go. Boom. Okay, a place to store visuals. So when thinking about Instagram, just think visuals and you'll be good. Okay, which of the following best describes Twitter? A microblogging social network site, a job search network, an open access network, an investigative reporting site. Yes, okay, Twitter, keyword is microblogging because it's micro because you can post so little. Next up, something collects pages of images reflecting a mood or vision, sometimes called a self-expression engine. Google+, Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest. Pinterest, excellent. Okay, next up. Something is a social network most associated with career and job information. Is it Snapchat, LinkedIn, Reddit, or blogs? LinkedIn, everyone jumped on that. Excellent, very good. Something is known for impermanent posting that disappears fast. Oh, okay, now I remember. Snapchat, wow, just banging it away, aren't you guys? Fantastic, so Snapchat, yes. And which platform is primarily issue-oriented, where ideas are shared, not photos or likes? Wondering about that. I see two possibilities. Be interested in finding out what it will be. Okay, so it's Reddit, primarily issue-oriented. Ideas shared, okay. Something occurs when the ordinary person on the street using social media observes and reports. Citizen journalism, absolutely. Okay. And question 11 of 12, being loosely yet incessantly connected with others via social networks could be called ambient awareness. Excellent. Great. What is not true about internet privacy? Apple refused to unlock a phone of San Bernardino terrorists. Okay. If you post stuff online, it may stay there forever. Users feel in control of their data on social media sites. Digital communications makes government surveillance easier. So which one of those would be not true? Yes, users generally don't feel in control of their data on those sites. All right, way to go, Chow. And as we move along, chapter 10 on the media business. Let's be a little more efficient than last time. Let's open up the Kahoot right away. We have time for everybody to sign in here. Whoops, playing the wrong game here. Chapter 10, I have to hit play. Put this up, classic. We will write up begin. And the game pin is 629753. 629753. And let me give you my little express recap here in just a second. Okay. Where's our review here? Toll broadcasting still exists. Well, we mentioned this before, but it never hurts to duplicate important information. So back in the early days, 1922, WEAF is airing commercials that last 10 minutes long. They're basically little infomercials. So they used to call that toll broadcasting. That's where you would say, you want to talk for 10 minutes? It'll cost you $100. You know? So that still goes on. As you know, you want to put your ab cruncher device on at 2 in the morning, that'll cost you $1,000. You know, we'll give you 30 minutes. So you sell airtime as though you're charging a toll on a highway to get to somewhere. You're charging a toll on an information channel to get to some people. Consolidation is a trend in electronic media, meaning that lots of companies are buying each other up, creating bigger companies. Disney buys most of 20th Century Fox. That's the big news this semester, billions of dollars. Station network compensation agreements reversed. So we're talking television here, and from the start of television, we've had networks with their local affiliate stations. So ABC has affiliates all across the country. It used to be that ABC would write them a check every month saying, hey, thanks for showing our programming. We're going to pay you this amount to be our affiliate. But as television has become more competitive, now the networks ask the affiliates to pay them. CBS says, hey, we're paying billions of dollars for football. You've got to help us out here. So instead of them writing the check, instead of the network writing the check to the local affiliate, now it's reversed. The network gets compensated by the affiliate because it's so valuable to the affiliate to show that program. So things have reversed. Now, one of the things, if you're a broadcast network, you really want to avoid being sued, okay, for libel and slander, all right? So libel refers to written defamation. In other words, in some kind of, I don't know, blog site or something, I start saying lies about private people, and they can sue me. Slander refers to spoken defamation. So if I'm on television and I start saying harmful things against certain people, then they can sue me for slander. In all of these cases, if I happen to be saying the truth and I can prove that that's true in court, I will win, all right? So libel and slander has to be, false information. That is the distinction between it. And of course, if you're in the electronic media, you don't want to have to go to court and pay for all of that. So you're very careful about what you say. Ownership and operation rules. So who can own a station? Well, it has to be an American citizen. You cannot be a foreigner and own a station here. When can an owner operate more than one major TV station in a market? Well, that is when they have a duopoly agreement where they can own more than one station. There's also, so duopoly is important, and there's also something called a local marketing agreement, an LMA. And this is when, you see, typically I'm not allowed to own two major television stations in the same market. I can't own a CBS affiliate and an ABC affiliate here in San Francisco. I'm not allowed to do it unless there is a very rare duopoly agreement. But what I can do is maybe the owner of the ABC station doesn't want to invest all the time, money, and energy into running that station. They can make an agreement with me, an LMA, a local marketing agreement, where they continue to own the station, but I can operate both of them. So I could conceivably operate a CBS and an ABC station, but it would have to be owned by somebody else, typically. Unless in the very rare occasions we can get permission to run a duopoly, which is, usually only when ownership is changing hands or something. It's a temporary type of arrangement. And this is, of course, major TV stations in the DMA. So let's see what the Kahoot does for us. So is this 629753? Let's start. Yes. So we're in. The 1941 report on chain broadcasting led to the creation of ABC. Well, there we go. Good thing we're doing this. That is true. Everybody got it right. And so originally CBS and NBC were the big networks. Congress looked at it and said, NBC, you are too huge. We're going to force you to give up some of your stations. And they did. And that's what led to the creation of ABC, a third competitive network. The FCC will not grant a license to a convicted felon. That's true. So you got to be American, and you can't be a felon. They won't give you a broadcast license. A 30-minute infomercial for a skincare system is an example of what revenue model? Spot advertising, toll broadcasting, subscription-based, or sponsorship. So it is like an infomercial. So the correct answer would be toll broadcasting. So remember, spots are little 60-second stuff, right? But this is a 30-minute long infomercial. So that is toll broadcasting. Next up, an oldie program like the Kraft Music Hall is an example of what? Notice the brand name is in the name of the show. Everybody got that right. That's sponsorship, right? Kraft sponsors the show. So there are no spots for other products in there. It's all Kraft. Paying a monthly fee to access Netflix online is an example of what type of revenue model? Spots, sponsorship, subscription, or toll? Everybody got that right. Yes. So we're seeing a lot of subscription services now. Which of the following is not a component of the broadcast star model? Oh, okay, should have shown you that, huh? So the FTC, network affiliated stations, the audience, or the FCC? Which of those is the odd entity out? So the FTC is the correct answer. So let me just, I'm just making a note that I'm going to post up the star broadcast model. Okay, I need to deal with that. And also revenue streams. Okay, I'll put up the picture of the star, but you know, basically I have my triangle here that I've always shown people. So we got audiences. We've got programmers, we got networks who do the distribution, and the star also includes, you know, the FCC, a regulator. So basically, I'll put up that model. I'm always talking about my triangle. But yeah. Okay, so let's move on. The next one, which of the following would disqualify someone from owning a broadcast station? Not being at least 40 years old, owning more than 5 radio stations across the country, not being a U.S. citizen, or not living in the town where the station is located. Yes, that is correct. Everybody got the U.S. citizen there. You have to be a U.S. citizen. If you're not, you can't get a license. What refers to a station being owned by one company but operated by another one? All right, so the correct answer was the local marketing agreement. So remember, LMA is where you have 2 separate owners, but one owner allows the other to operate the station. The duopoly is when you have the same owner, but this is a very rare occasion. It's usually only a stopgap measure. So if something refers to a station being owned by one company but operated by another is a local management agreement. Making cable companies pay local TV stations for the right to include the local TV signal is called something. What is it called? Okay. Oops, it's probably me who's being holding us off. Okay, so the actual correct answer, retransmission consent. So what cable does in this case is it takes the signal from local TV stations and it puts it out over the cable, giving people better reception. Well, they actually have to pay the local TV station for the right to do that. And that is called retransmission consent because they retransmit. The local station transmits, but cable also transmits again. You have to pay for that. Something refers to a single entity owning more than 2 radio stations in a market. So one owner, more than 2 stations. What would that be? All right, duopoly. That is the correct use of the term duopoly. Excellent. Owner consolidation led to a media market that is increasingly, what? Reverse compensated, oligopolistic, audience-driven, or regulated? Okay. The correct answer is oligopolistic. Wow. So let me just explain that. We know what a monopoly is. A monopoly is when one person owns everything. An oligopoly refers to what we see in the media business, which is that a very few companies own everything. All right? So by consolidation, by buying stuff up, we used to have a Fox that was, had all kinds of businesses, and we had Disney, which had all kinds of businesses. But Disney bought most of the businesses out of Fox. So we still have Fox and Disney, but consolidation is leading to what's called oligopoly. You have only a few companies taking care of everything. Which of the following is increasingly being used to select broadcast licensees? Okay. The answer is auctions. And more, the government is just saying, you want a radio station? How much are you going to bid for it? And then they give it to the highest bidder. The type of defamation occurs when the offending statement is spoken. So for instance, you're watching TV and somebody is saying, terrible things about you. Yep, it's slander. That's right. So libel is written, slander is spoken. Both of those cost you money. You don't want them to happen. The rule that local cable providers include all over-the-air TV channels in the basic lineup is called must carry. So that's the rule. It's pretty easy to remember that the cable operator must carry all of the network affiliates from their local market. They can't cut them out. And finally, to defend against libel, the broadcaster can demonstrate that the defamatory statements are true. So if you can demonstrate that what you're saying is true, even if someone sues you for libel, they won't win. That is correct. That's right. So your best defense is just telling the truth all the time. Okay. Excellent. So that's chapter 10, chapter 11, station operations. And let's just jump into them right away. My little recaps are taking too much time. I think we're going to run out of time unless we just go ahead and play that Kahoot together. And I can explain whatever needs explaining. So let's do the classic. And here we are, 203183 is pin here. Just remember that these pins are not what we're seeing here on the screen. These are not the challenges that you can play in your Kahoot. All right, I'm just going to go right ahead and start. So we move along, get these questions done in the next 7 minutes. I think we can. Streaming content to your computer takes less file space than downloading it. True or false? True. Excellent. Okay. Okay, sorry. Newsrooms using new technologies typically increase the size of their field production crews. Does that make sense? Okay, so the correct answer is false. The idea is that they're using automation, like robot cameras and stuff, so that they can lay off camera operators. So when they bring in new technology, it's usually to decrease the size of their payroll. Yeah, they want less people. Studio cameras are mounted on what? What's the name of the device that they put the studio cameras on? So, let's see. Move ahead. The correct answer is pedestals. Okay, so studio cameras are mounted on pedestals, and now they're mounted on robotic pedestals that don't need people to operate them. This computerized device combines and processes signals from multiple signal sources, multiple video sources. So this is a very important part. It's called the switcher. That's right. You take our studio courses, you get to work with our switcher. Radio promotions are designed to generate controversy so people will talk about the station. True or false? So the correct answer is false. What you don't want is to create controversy, because some people will hate your station. Okay, so they're designed to get people talking about the station, but not about controversy. One advantage that terrestrial radio continues to have over satellite and streaming is localism. Okay, so that is true. Radio's big advantage is that it reaches people locally. Who's in charge of policy, hiring, payroll, contracts, and facilities at a local station? Is it the production department, the engineering department, general management, or the program director? General management. Everybody got it right. Excellent. Which of the following works most closely with the music director? Which position? The program director, the regional sales manager, the chief engineer, or the promotions director? The correct answer is the program director. All right, so the program director is responsible for all programming that is on the radio station. That includes music. The engineering department of a local station is also responsible for FCC technical compliance. True or false? It is true that the engineer makes sure that the signal conforms to what the FCC requires. The system for distributing cable TV to subscribers resembles a tree with trunk and branches. True or false? That is true. Okay, so they actually call it a trunk line, which brings the signal to your neighborhood, and then the branches go out to the individual homes. Question 11, the type of wires used by cable systems do not lose strength when traveling long distances. That is false. Great. They do lose strength. That's why you have to live close to the head end to get good service. Buying time on other media to publicize a broadcast station involves which department? So you're in a radio station, you want people who don't listen to your station to learn about it. So you're going to put ads out there. Who's involved in that? That's the promotions department. Okay, so what they're doing is promoting the station through other media in order to get people to listen. TV programming departments are primarily concerned with, what do? Censor content, hire staff, program acquisition and scheduling, or program production? Okay, so program acquisition scheduling. Everybody got it. Great. And last, in larger markets, the sales manager position may be divided into local sales manager and perfect regional or national sales manager. That is correct, because it's a larger market, they're going to need more people to handle it. Alrighty, well, unfortunately, that is all the time for today. Did not get a chance to dig into chapter 13. But as you can see, there are a lot of topics up here, so play the Kahoots, play the challenge for that, and you can look through any of the topics that you need to. Any questions about this before we break up? We got 1 minute. So. All right. Hello to everybody who streamed. I don't see any questions in there, so we're done. So good luck on the exam. Once again, the exam is on Tuesday, December 18th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. 50 multiple choice questions. So see you then. Thanks, guys. Good studying.
Is there review on Thursday as well?
Pardon me?
Are you going to be reviewing on Thursday as
No,
well?
there is no class on Thursday. Today's
Okay.
the last class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for your Tuesday, Thursdays, and tomorrow is the last class for Monday, Wednesdays.